Sometimes satires don't age well. They're often a product of their time, satirizing elements of the culture of the time. You can avoid dating your satire by picking less topical, more universal elements to poke fun at. And if that won't work, you can always do what this movie did: fill the story with lots of naked people. Exploitation Reviews, and me, Rob, and today I'm taking a look at The Telephone Book from 1971. This satirical film comes to us from writer-director Nelson Lyon. It was the only feature he directed, though, so I suppose he's better known as a writer. A writer who worked on Saturday Night Live, nonetheless. So let's check out his sexy satire. After the credits, we open on a lady with really cool glasses. That's our gal Alice, played by the lovely Sarah Kennedy. She stands on her head, does some stretching, and then calls a dial-a-prayer line. Back in the days before the internet, people had to entertain themselves with different, pointless activities. Then we see a man pick up a payphone and make an obscene call. He calls Alice. The language is a little spicy, and the film cuts to a topless Alice listening, and these aren't things you can experience here on YouTube.
Man, I just work here.
But of course, we don't have to stay here. You can now support the channel on Patreon and get access to spicy versions of my reviews. Link is in the description. After all that sexy, we hop over to a guy telling us about his former days as an obscene phone caller.
With my hand dripping with this thick hot pea soup, I'd call up nuns.
His story is pretty funny.
You've got a weird sense of humor.
The movie will have a few of these talking head segments, former obscene callers talking about their experiences. This gives the film a kind of documentary feel, but not really, because what the people say is so outlandish and funny, it's more of a mockumentary feel, similar to what you'd find in a Christopher Guest film. Back with our gal, she calls a friend and tells her she was really into that obscene phone call.
It was only a phone call, but it was a work of art.
The next morning, Alice gets another call from the phone artist. This time we don't hear him, we just get some subtitles. I rather like the photography here. Blonde hair, pale skin, dark sheets, gorgeous. Alice says she wants to see the caller. He's not into the idea at first, but eventually tells her his name is John Smith and he lives in Manhattan. And this is where the title of the movie will play a role. No shortage of John Smiths in Manhattan listed in the phone book. But she finds him, or maybe not. This John Smith is auditioning actresses for a role in an adult film. Not much of the auditioning process can be shown here.
No fair.
Alice chats with the director and watches for a while, eventually learning that the project will be a treatise on the condition of man.
What's the condition of man?
Fucked up.
Shortly after joining the activities, Alice gets a phone call from the John Smith she's really after. How did he know she'd be here? Well, this is a satire, and it's satirizing films made to show flesh, and those are full of unbelievable bits of unreality.
The story is ludicrous.
On the way home, Alice is confronted by a flasher, but she turns the tables on him, which makes him very uncomfortable. They do end up chatting in a diner, and our gal tells him the story of the time she helped a guy put away his large magazine. The guy with the large magazine is William Hickey, by the way. You might recognize him as Lewis in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, or as the voice of Dr. Finkelstein in The Nightmare Before Christmas. Alice does eventually meet her mysterious caller. He shows up in a pig mask.
It's not that I'm disfigured. It's just that I have difficulty communicating with people eye to eye.
Why don't you wear sunglasses?
I'm theatrical.
But you might be wondering, why a pig mask? Well, here is where the film might be a tad on the nose. He's an obscene phone caller. He's a pig. So anyway, that's enough out of me as far as plot goes. Let's talk some highlights. Sarah Kennedy, she's a doll, super cute and light and bubbly, just a joy to watch all the way through. And she's beautifully photographed. The cinematography here is delicious. I also like how the film handled the obscene calls. We never really get to hear much of them, and this is good. It's most certainly dirty, which isn't necessarily funny, and at the end of the day, this is a comedy. But doing it this way also serves the plot. Maybe he is the best obscene caller in the world who can turn women on with the perfectly chosen words spoken in his perfectly silken voice. Kind of reminds me of advice a writing professor gave me once. She said, "It's fine to write a story about the world's greatest poet, but if you aren't a great poet, don't put any of the characters' poetry in the story." Most of my writing professors were terrible and gave terrible advice. In fact, I spent a fair amount of time writing stuff for them that flouted their advice, but I always liked that tip. Anyway, this film is a clever bit of satire, which is one of my favorite things. But what is it satirizing? Well, I have some ideas. For one, Mondo films, particularly of the sexploitation type. You know, those spiced up documentaries that would play for the Raincoat Brigade on 42nd Street. The inclusion of the interviews here are very Mondo-like, real-world examples of perversity and obscenity. Here, of course, they aren't realistic at all, they're absurd and hilarious, but that's the idea. But I don't think satirizing sexploitation is all that's going on. The film has a number of references and outright discussions of America and American activities. Alice drapes herself in an American flag at one point. Is she a stand-in for America? Someone turned on by depravity? What does that say about Americans? Nothing good. And the guy with the large magazine that won't go away describes his erect problem as patriotic. And most importantly, when we get to hear the obscene caller's backstory, we learn he was a soldier who did terrible things and was rewarded and honored for it. Remember that when this film came out in 1971, America was still involved with the Vietnam War, which was extremely unpopular, and, in fact, opposition to the war was an important part of the counterculture movement. This is a counterculture film. Oh, on that topic, by the way, if you like these counterculture films or would like to get deeper into them, I can also recommend Putney Swope by Robert Downey Sr. Anyway, back to this movie. Is it trying to say that America itself is perverse? Yeah, sure seems that way. Finally, also remember that in 1971, the porno chic era of cinema had arrived. This cinematic trend that killed off the old sexploitation industry by offering audiences actual pornography started in 1969 with Andy Warhol's Blue Movie. The telephone book, like the work of Warhol, is very counterculture in style, so the film seemingly is also poking a little fun at Mr. Warhol and what he had started. Oh, and on that point, the film originally had an intermission, which is now lost, and that intermission was a clip of Andy Warhol eating popcorn, so Warhol was certainly on the filmmaker's mind. But despite the beauty, the smart satire, and the humor, the film's not perfect. Like a guy who needs help putting away a magazine, this film has some shortcomings. Well, there's not much plot to the movie. Structurally, it's rather episodic, a picaresque, if you will. The movie goes from one sequence to the next without a tight narrative thread. It's got tight other things, but not narrative threads. Alice meets people accidentally, randomly, not because she's on anything like a hero's journey. And if more episodic stories aren't really your thing, this might not be really your thing. Also, some sequences really do go on for too long. There's an animated sequence near the end that gets tiresome. And even the monologue delivered by the pig-masked man overstays its welcome. Overall, though, it's great and wildly underappreciated, but it's not perfect. Kind of like America.